Independent.ie. You're very welcome here today, and it's considerably drier than yesterday. But I'd like to invite everybody here to come into the room. We have an incredibly interesting conversation here this morning. We have an expert panel here to talk about mental health issues in Ireland. And we have two people who are going to talk about their own personal incidences and dealing with mental health. And we also have the Director of Services at Aware.ie, Breed O'Mara, with us. But I would encourage people just to come in here, take a seat for 5 minutes, a little bit of mindfulness, and listen to hear what other people have gone through in their lives and how they've got over it. Both stories, Peter Hines, he's the Zurich Farming Independent Farmer of the Year this year, and Margaret Hochter has an incredible story about going from heels to wellies that I think she's going to take us through. As I said, my name is Margaret Donnelly. I'm the editor at FarmIreland.ie, which is the new agricultural website from The Independent. And we're here today to talk about mental health issues. Farming is a very isolated job, and often mental health issues are swept under the carpet and are not openly dealt with, like financial issues and other strains that might be affecting farm families. So we're going to talk about that today. And I just want to check with our technical team that we're all live, and we are. So what I'd actually ask is, Peter Hines, he's the Zurich Farming Independent Farmer of the Year, an incredible success story from the outside looking in, but maybe everything hasn't been so straightforward for you in the last couple of years.
Yeah, sure, I suppose my story goes back to 16 years ago, working crazy hours at the time, under a lot of pressure, and I think a snowball of issues at the time built up to, I hit a very low point. And I knew I was gone to the stage where I wasn't able to control things myself in my own mind, and I went to seek help eventually with my own doctor, who gave me the number of an exceptionally good counsellor, and went to see her. I suppose hesitantly and reluctantly. It's a daunting thing to do, but I got in touch with a good counsellor, went to see her, and from there, I suppose. The first day is tough. You get great relief at the end of an hour-long session.
And was there any one particular moment in your life where you felt overwhelmed, or what sparked that to go talk to somebody?
I suppose when you get to the stage that you can't control your own feelings, and you're kind of, I suppose, you would probably stand there and cry for no apparent reason, just that the world is sitting on your shoulders, and you don't know how to control that.
And do you think that feeling of the world sitting on your shoulders and not being able to control that is something that a lot of farmers would go through? Farming is a very isolated industry, it's a very isolated job.
Yeah, I suppose, look, the reason I was willing to put my story out there, and myself and Paula went through it in great detail and spoke to yourselves too before it was ever printed. My view on it is, and I know that I spoke to Aware about this yesterday evening, there's a 10% figure on the general community in Ireland with mental health issues. Agri has a lot bigger problem, in my mind, globally. There's no real statistic on it in Ireland. I would suggest that figure is about 20%, that in the region 20% of the farming community has or experienced or will experience at some stage a mental health issue. And a lot of it boils down to just finding someone very good to talk to and just dealing with the issue before it gets out of your control.
Now, Breed, you're Director of Services with Aware.ie, and Peter has said he thinks about 20% of farmers probably have to deal with some mental health issues at some stage. How would you feel that figure is in terms of, based on the people that have come into you? And I know you're trying to promote a range of new services for around rural Ireland. So what are the issues that farmers are dealing with, and how can you help them?
Okay, so a number of questions there. So I would say first that we know that there's about 450,000 people in Ireland experiencing depression at any one time. So that's 1 in 10. And Peter is suggesting that that's much higher in the farming community. We have a tent here at the Ploughing Championships this year, and we've had a huge number of people come in to talk to us about mental health issues, what it's like to experience depression in the farming community, what it's like to experience anxiety in the farming community. And I would, second a lot of what Peter has said there in terms of, how it impacts a person's life. And we know that when somebody is experiencing depression, that it impacts their feelings, their energy, their sleep, their thoughts, their interests in things. So things that normally give somebody pleasure no longer gives them pleasure. And then there's always the worry about, feelings of, is life worth living? So there's, depression impacts every aspect of the individual. But the biggest thing I think about that, the combination of all those factors, is that it isolates people. And I think in the farming community, farmers, and I'm talking about farmers and wives or lady farmers, can be terribly isolated. And I think that's really what we're hearing in our tent. We're hearing about isolation. We're hearing about families moving away and farmers, feeling that they're getting older and their children not coming back to the farms. We're hearing about loans and the worries about debts. And we're also hearing about the stressful times of the year. We're hearing about spring calving. We're hearing about harvest time when they're weather dependent, and all of these issues are compounding. But I think Peter made a really good point there about when he went to the counsellor and looking at his feelings and his thoughts. And one of the main reasons Aware came to the Ploughing Championships this year was to promote a programme that we have available all over the country. It's called Life Skills. And what it is about acknowledging that connection between a thought, an unhelpful thought, and how that impacts how you feel, how that impacts how you feel in your body, and how that impacts on what you do. And then that again impacts what you think and how you feel and how you physically feel and what you do. And we have a 6-week programme that's free, that's running all over the country for people. And it's to help them to learn practical skills in how they can stop that circle from spinning out of control. And if anybody is interested in that programme, if they go on to aware.ie, they will find out lots of information about it.
Margaret, you might tell us a little bit about your background and your story and how you came to be up on this stage today.
In 2013, I was made redundant. I was in the corporate world. My husband is a sheep farmer. We're sheep farmers in Wicklow, and we have a horse delivery business and apple juice. And we had dabbled in all of those, but I was known as the laying hen. And on October 1st at 10 to 4, I was told I was no longer required, that my role was redundant. Now, we had taken out farm loans on the strength of my salary, our combined salaries. So I found myself terrified. And when you're filled with fear, you feel very blocked, and you think, but I have a wonderful, supportive husband who said, sure, come on home, we'll work it out. We'll work this out. And that gave me and I had a redundancy package, so I was very lucky. I wasn't going into the night with nothing. So I said to him, sometimes your worst day could be your best day, Eamon. Why don't we look at the farm and see where we can go? So basically it was October, so the apples needed to be picked. And I said, I'm going to take the lamb to the market. I'll buy a gazebo, €1,000. I'll stand in Dún Laoghaire market and I'll see, does anyone want this lamb? And he said, right, go ahead. And now he was very kind, because he thought, sure, she's going through a phase. She'll be all right. She'll get a job in January. But he genuinely meant that, because he was worried about me being on the farm, because as we know, the farm is quite isolating. So I went to Dún Laoghaire market, box of lamb. They said, sorry, we don't have freezers in Dún Laoghaire. We live in beautiful houses with small fridges. So could you give me a piece of lamb? So that's how the lamb business grew. So I came home to him and I said, I'm getting out an A4 pad. I'm not giving up on this yet. There's another song to sing on this farm. So I said, let's think of all the ways we can make this work. So with that, so that was really good. So we sold our lamb, we sold all the apple juice, we built up our livery business, but it was January. So it took me 4 months to have the little bit of relapse going, oh my God, what's happened? And I went through the 5 stages of grief, and maybe some of you know those stages. First of all, I went into denial. Oh, sure, I'm so important in my job. They'll call me back. It's a mistake. They really want me. I'm fantastic. And they'll realise they made a mistake, and that phone call never happened. And then I went into anger. I gave them 16 years of my life. I was amazing. What is wrong with them? And then I went into a little bit of depression. Now, when I say depression, it wasn't like the black dog that Winston Churchill talks about. It was more like a little Jack Russell. And the voice in my head saying, you weren't good enough. You lost your job, Missy. It's now dark in winter and you've lost your job. And I suddenly decided, right, I need help. I didn't go the counselling route. I said I would go to a life coach. I'd heard about life coaches. I left a message with the first one and got no response. I arranged to meet a second one that never turned up. So now I began to get paranoid, going, mother of God, it's me. There's something wrong with me. So then I said, I'll do a course. What's the worst that can happen? I have time. I said to Eamon, if you give me, let's give myself 6 months to sort my head out. From October 1st, brought me up to April Fool's Day, which I hoped wasn't going to be indicative of what was going to happen. So I went and did the course, the life coaching course, and I found it amazing because I learned to deal with my issues as well as get a piece of paper to say I could help other people. And from there then, I went through the acceptance stage, and we decided to go ahead and build the farm. But I knew I needed to get off the farm as well. I wasn't going to always be on there. It wasn't good for both of us. I drove Eamon bananas. I suddenly became an expert in horses, an expert in breeding, an expert in sheep, and he said, would you like to go and get some other work? So it's been a roller coaster, but thank God we've come through it. We have diversified hugely on the farm. We are successful, thank God. Now we have a crop of sweet corn that's sitting in a field. Like any harvesting people at the moment, the rain, the sun, it's not quite there. I have the shops screaming at me a little bit. So we go through the same challenges, but we go through them together and whatever.
And that's an interesting point that you raise, and Peter, you mentioned it as well, in terms of the family support or the support of your partner or whoever was there. How important was that for you, Peter? Paula, your wife, you have 3 children. How important was it in getting through the tough times to go and talk to somebody who understood your situation and could see it from the inside out?
Yeah, sure. I suppose look, it's key that you have a partner supporting you 100%. But I think you need to realise that too, that sometimes that support is there, and you probably can't see it yourself in a way. But that is the main thing, that you get to grips with the knowing that you have the backing of your family. And I think I work long hours, but it's the one thing I really enjoy about farming is that I get to share every moment of it 7 days a week with Paula. And I know I said to somebody recently that you have to have a huge bond with someone to be able to work and live with them 7 days a week.
And I guess one thing, like last year at Independent.ie, we had Alan Quinlan talking about mental health issues, and it's incredible to see a big, strong man be able to say mental health and physical strength are two completely different things. And Breed, would you say that through Aware you see many men coming in, or is that hang-up and stigma still there for men to deal with mental health issues? Yeah,
I think it's improving, thankfully. I think more men are beginning to talk about their mental health and reach out. More people are reaching out for help. We still know from figures that an awful lot more women seek help, and we know that women are more open to talking about what's wrong and talking about their anxiety or their low mood. We also know, unfortunately, that sometimes when men go to the doctor with their symptoms, that even though their symptoms are similar to what a woman would say, that a woman will be diagnosed quicker. So it's really important that when men are going into their doctor, that they're going in knowing what they're saying. And again, I would suggest if anybody is concerned about their mental health, go onto our website, have a look at the symptoms. And if you're experiencing 5 or more of those symptoms for 2 weeks or more, you really do need to be seeing somebody.
And are men not diagnosed because maybe the doctor feels if I put a label on this, that whereas at least they've come in and they've spoken about it and there's been no negative repercussions of going out the door with, I have mental health issues?
Yes, I think there is. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is that it's a little bit more acceptable. So I think there is that stigma is still there. But I think it's breaking down, and we can really see it in the services we're providing. We have more men than women coming to our support groups around the country, 37 support groups around the country, and we've had more men coming to them than women for a number of years now. And we have noticed this year, we used to always have about 60% of women contacting our support line with just 40% of men. This year it's 50-50. We've seen a big increase in the numbers contacting us, but also a big increase in the number of men, which is very reassuring. It's really good to know that men are reaching out.
And is there a generational change there, that young people are more inclined to talk about mental health issues and be open about it?
Yes, very definitely. And I think younger men are much quicker to seek help, to use services, to go to programs, to say, I need this. I mentioned to you earlier, we talk about where we compare mental health and dental health. And, people don't think twice about looking after their teeth and their dental health. And everybody here will have done something already today to look after their dental health. But what have you done today to look after your mental health? So we'd really, really like to normalise mental health as much as dental health, if we could do that.
And Margaret, on that note, and maybe Peter as well, what do you do every day to look after your mental health? Are there key findings or key things that you go back to time and again, whether it's to talk to somebody or just to remind yourself of something?
Okay. Well, for me, especially November and January, I find the hardest, like that sad syndrome. And Eamon, we both feel we get a touch of it. So we go swimming. And we walk separately now, and we make sure to meet our friends, and we meet them off the farm. And I find, because the farm is lovely and it's in Wicklow and it's all leafy and lovely, people love to come and visit me, and I say, sorry, now, not today, I need to come and visit you. So I get off the farm. So the exercise is the big one. Meeting my friends, even watching a TV show and saying, right now I'm watching the show and I'm not going to think about the farm. And we also cut off, and I don't know if you experience this with your wife, we cut off the break when we talk about farming. Like even on the way up today, Eamon, we drove in the old Jeep and we were going along and we talked about the farm and will the corn work, and I said, stop, we're on a day out, we're going to the ploughing, we're on a hot date. Can we talk about something else?
So taking yourself out of your day-to-day situation as well.
Yeah, and what's become very important for Eamon is our son loves rugby. He's in Presbray and he's just gone into secondary school, So he goes to watch him play rugby, and that gives him tremendous happiness. So it's all about finding what makes you tick. I love my friends, I love the odd glass of wine, I love the odd movie, walking, having the crack, maybe the odd horse ride. That's it. And you can keep it as simple as possible. Most of the things that make us happy don't cost much. The library, get a book out, go for the walk, it's free.
That reminds me, the Older Than Ireland movie that was brought out last year. So all the people who are around 100 years old, none of them spoke about physical possessions. They all spoke about life experiences and events in their life and people in their lives. But Peter, what about you then? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, look, Paul and myself enjoy life as best we can. Like Margaret, we go on regular dates and we try and do as much fun stuff as we can. And every day I try and have a good laugh. Probably be classed as a bit of a blackguard half the time, but my general consensus on life at this stage is you get up and you have a laugh every day, and that keeps you as sane as possible. I think the big thing I'd like to see maybe improve within the whole industry, and it's fantastic to see it here today, and with all the great work that Aware are doing as well. But I think the stigma in the agri sector needs to be broken fast, and the only way to do that is by every stakeholder within the industry talking about it openly. I know a lot of them are willing to do it, and a lot of them have been a great asset and help to us. But I think if the stakeholders and all the major farm organisations are willing to acknowledge that mental health is a big, big issue in the agri sector, it will break the stigma a lot faster.
And do you think the stigma is worse within the agri sector than other sectors out there, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I think in the sports sector, because you have a lot of top rugby players willing to come out openly about it, it helps an awful lot. And I think maybe in bigger communities it's easier to deal with, but I think the isolation in the agri sector it makes it slower to bring down or to break down the barrier of the stigma. And I would say the industry accepting that is a big part of it. Like I would see a lot of people that have approached us in the last few weeks quietly that are willing to talk about it at their own issue, because I suppose they've read our story and whatever. But I find a lot of people that don't have a mental health issue aren't willing to discuss it with me. They won't even acknowledge that they read the Irish Independent the day my story was printed. And if I mention it to them and I said, did you see the Farming Independent 2 weeks ago? They're, oh, so we can talk about that.
So that stigma is still there on a day-to-day basis. And I want to say at this point, if anybody on the floor wants to raise any points or ask any questions of the panel, please do put up your hand and make yourself known. But Margaret, you want to get in there?
The one person I've listened to in the farming community speaking on mental health is George Graham, the international shearing champion. He's an amazing speaker on this, and I think if he was backed financially to speak around the country in farming communities through Aware, you're aware of George Graham, are you? He's an amazing man, and he's an amazing story of how low he got and how he picked himself up. But if more people like him, who are really well respected, and we have our champion farmer of the year, I mean, these are all champions. I don't know what I'm doing here.
And Breed, from Aware's point of view, you might give some day-to-day tips that you would encourage people to do just to keep mentally on top of things and to stay positive. We've had some great examples from Peter, and Margaret here, but what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Peter and Margaret are saying are really, really good. I think, you know, if you're looking after your mental health, if you're actually considering your diet, and everybody is familiar with the Good Heart diet, it's really well known. If people were adhering to that, that's helping your mental health as well. There's two things to add into that. You know, I think if somebody's experiencing low mood, we all know that alcohol is a depressant, so it's really, really good to try and stay away from alcohol while your mood is low, while you're recovering. So that's really important. The other thing is that sugar, while it gives you a short-term rush, there's a slump after it that really, really impacts your mood. So they're just two extra things to consider in diet. Sleep, really important. If you're struggling with sleep, with low mood, make sure that you're preparing for sleep and you're giving yourself every opportunity to sleep. It's really important.
So I want to thank our three-person panel here today. Margaret Hockley, incredible story. And Peter, we've all read about it in the Farming Independent, and congratulations. You know, to become Farmer of the Year is no mean feat at all, and to get over any issues, mental, financial, to do that is incredible. And Breed, thank you very much from Aware. I think the key points to take home for everybody here today is about keeping yourself out there in society. Go for a walk, be active, look after your diet, and treat mental health as you would treat dental health. It's a very simple thing, and hopefully that stigma will be lost then. But thank you very much to the three here today. So thank you.
Thank you.